In corporate strategy, time is the single most unforgiving constraint. No matter how much capital a company holds, operations can only accelerate at a finite pace before the system breaks. Building infrastructure, hiring specialized sales teams, and acquiring clients one by one is a linear process. This organic growth requires a 5 to 10-year horizon to achieve significant scale. By choosing inorganic growth, a company compresses a decade of development into a single year. Mergers and acquisitions drive this vertical jump. A merger combines two similar-sized entities into a new whole, while an acquisition involves absorbing a target for its technology or customers. Executives use these tools to bypass the organic waiting period. Acquiring a competitor neutralizes market threats immediately, preventing rivals from outmaneuvering the company during a slow internal build. Despite the mathematical appeal of instant scale, the mechanics of M&A are operationally unforgiving. Most deals fail because of three specific traps: flawed synergy logic, the valuation trap, and the cultural friction that hollows out acquired companies from within. Approaching an acquisition as a simple transaction, rather than a high-stakes structural integration, routinely leads to the destruction of shareholder value. Corporations frequently pay massive premiums far above a target company's book value. To understand why, we have to look at the underlying financial justification. This is synergy logic. For the capital deployment to make sense, the combined entity must yield nonlinear returns, the 1 + 1 = 3 equation. The premium paid is only recovered if cost and revenue synergies bridge the gap. Cost synergies provide the most immediate recovery. Combining firms allows the elimination of redundant ERP systems, overlapping departments, and duplicated headquarters. Consolidating procurement volumes creates economies of scale, granting the new entity leverage to negotiate lower prices from suppliers. Revenue synergies are harder to execute, but provide higher long-term value. This involves cross-selling the target's products to the acquirer's existing customer base, and vice versa. For example, an accounting software firm can acquire a warehouse management startup and immediately bundle the products. Revenue scales across the combined client lists without the cost of new lead generation. These synergies must be proven through rigorous data before a deal is signed. They cannot be treated as assumptions. If the calculated value of these synergies does not fully offset the acquisition premium, the deal is mathematically insolvent from day one. The first major point of failure is the valuation trap, where over-optimistic synergy projections lead to overpayment. During a bidding war, acquirers push the target's price well beyond fundamental value. The resulting gap is recorded as accounting goodwill. This goodwill is an intangible asset, leaving the acquirer's balance sheet highly vulnerable to future write-downs. To justify these prices, executives often manipulate discounted cash flow models, adjusting growth variables to obscure the reality of the overpayment. The result is a heavy debt load required to finance the winning bid. This timeline shows the impact. The red line, the cost of capital, rises until it overtakes the profits generated by the acquired company. This financial inversion is known as the winner's curse. The acquirer wins the deal in the press, but the high cost of debt services begins to bleed the operation of its actual cash reserves. Success in a bidding war is irrelevant if the debt servicing requirements exceed the target's capacity to generate profit. Even with sound financial modeling, most deals fail to create shareholder value. These failures typically stem from cultural friction, a factor frequently overlooked during the negotiation phase. Take Siam Trading, a legacy distributor acquiring an AI startup. On the left, a rigid multi-layered hierarchy. On the right, a flat, agile node matrix. The legacy firm often attempts to enforce corporate compliance immediately, sending in auditors to standardize the startup's processes. Forcing rigid corporate systems onto an agile team stops their ability to iterate, effectively killing the innovation engine. This results in an immediate loss of human capital. As the founders and lead engineers leave, the acquirer is left with an empty software shell. The specialized talent that justified the acquisition price has walked out the door. Specialized acquirers avoid this through a strategy called ring fencing. Ring fencing maintains the target's operational independence. The startup keeps its culture and flat structure, with the founders reporting directly to the parent CEO to avoid middle management interference. Integration is limited to essential back-end data exchange, preserving the environment that created the value in the first place. Attempting to simply assimilate an innovative culture into a rigid legacy bureaucracy is a form of corporate sabotage. To mitigate these risks, strategists use a 5-point diagnostic checklist before transferring any capital. Point 1. Strategic motive. The acquisition must build on existing core strength, not serve as a desperate pivot away from a failing primary business. Point 2. Deep due diligence. Audits must look past the balance sheet to identify hidden intellectual property disputes or pending environmental liabilities. Point 3. Talent retention. Key personnel must be legally secured through vesting options or golden handcuffs before the deal closes. Point 4. The 100-day plan. An operational blueprint must be ready on day 1 to stabilize the workforce and maintain continuity. Point 5. Integration costs. Executives must account for the immediate expenses of server migrations, rebranding, and severance, which can quickly erode anticipated synergies. Neglecting any of these checks transforms a potential shortcut into a severe financial liability. Successful M&A requires deep systemic alignment between two entities, functioning as a long-term structural union. This formula summarizes the path. Disciplined valuation and strategic ring-fencing are the requirements for true inorganic growth. Flawless execution of this model allows a company to corner its domestic market at high speed. Once a company achieves domestic dominance, physical national borders become the primary constraint on further growth. In our next breakdown, we will examine international expansion. We will analyze how global brands manage the tension between global standardization and local adaptation to capture foreign markets.